My name is James. I'm 40 years old and I live in a quiet town in North Carolina. Nothing fancy, just a modest house with a front porch, a backyard that always needs mowing, and a silence that's louder than it used to be. I used to run a small business, custom furniture. It was my thing, hands-on work. I liked shaping something from nothing. My wife loved that about me. She said it made me look peaceful, strong, grounded. But that life isn't what it used to be. My world collapsed. I became a widower. I never thought I'd be saying that word about myself, a widower at 40. My wife, Anna, passed away after a brutal fight with cancer. She was 2 years younger than me, just 38. We'd been together for over a decade, built a life, a home. We had our little girl, Sophie. She's 8 now, the kindest soul you'll ever meet, looks exactly like her mom. When Anna was diagnosed, everything stopped. It was stage 4 ovarian cancer. It came out of nowhere. No signs, no symptoms, just a sharp pain one night that sent us to the ER. Then everything became hospital visits, specialists, second opinions, traveling out of state for treatments that gave us false hope. I sold off half the tools in my shop just to cover some of the costs. We fought hard, but that kind of cancer doesn't fight fair. One morning, she just couldn't get up. A few days later, she was gone. Since then, I haven't been the same, not even close. I tried holding on to the business, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I couldn't focus, clients stopped calling, orders dried up, I stopped caring. My parents offered to take Sophie in for a little while, just so I could get myself together. That little while turned into months. I see her every weekend. Sometimes she stays over, but she lives with them now. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I needed that. I needed not to break down in front of her every night. We had a dinner, not a party, nothing like that, just something small. A few of Anna's closest friends, some family, people who knew her, loved her. We cooked some of her favorite dishes. Someone brought red velvet cake, that was her thing. The house smelled like rosemary and lemon. For a second, it almost felt like she might walk through the door again. Among the guests was Clare, Anna's best friend since college, 10 years younger than me. She's 30, now works in education, always had this calming presence. She was there through everything, hospital visits, helping with Sophie, staying up with Anna on the hard nights when I couldn't breathe. We didn't talk much during the dinner. I mostly stayed quiet, watched the candle burn next to Anna's photo on the shelf. Everyone shared memories, and then someone asked me to say a few words. I stood up, holding a glass that I couldn't stop shaking, and I said, I wasn't ready to be a widower so young, and I'm still not. Then I added, truth is, I feel like a man no one needs anymore. The room got real quiet after that. I saw Claire look down at her plate. I could tell it hurt her to hear that, but I was just being honest. This has stripped me to the bone. People started leaving, hugs at the door, a few tears. Everyone told me to call if I needed anything, but we all know how that goes. Then it was just me, alone again. I washed the glasses, blew out the candles, and sat in Anna's chair. I don't even know why I do that. Maybe it's a way to feel close to her. Maybe it's just punishment. The house was quiet, no TV, no music, just the hum of the fridge and my thoughts spiraling. Then there was a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I stood up slowly, more curious than anything. When I opened it, there she was, Claire. She looked nervous, holding her purse tight to her chest. She didn't say anything for a second, just stood there like she was still deciding whether to go through with it. I said, hey, did you forget something? She shook her head. No, I just couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what you said. I stepped aside and let her in without saying much. I didn't know what this was. I didn't want to assume, but something in her eyes told me it wasn't just a casual check-in. She sat at the kitchen table, same spot she'd been in earlier. I poured her a glass of water and then she said it. After everything that happened, I know we've barely spoken. I thought maybe it was for the best, but tonight, when you said that, I just couldn't ignore it. I stayed quiet, let her talk. "You're not a man nobody needs," she said. "You're grieving and it's okay to fall apart, but this shutting yourself off, it's not fair to Sophie or to yourself." I looked away, my throat was tightening. I felt like I couldn't swallow. Then I said it again. "I'm just a widower, that's all anyone sees now." She leaned in. "Then why am I here?" That hit me harder than I expected. There was no agenda in her voice. No pity, just care. We talked for maybe 2 hours about Anna, about the way Claire saw her as a sister, how she still wakes up thinking she's going to get a text from her. We cried, both of us, and for the first time in months I didn't feel alone in the pain. When she stood up to leave, she touched my arm. "If it ever gets too heavy," she said, "just call, even if it's the middle of the night." And then she left. That was the first real conversation I'd had in weeks, maybe months. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something shift inside me. The next morning I woke up earlier than usual. No alarm, just something stirred me. I sat on the edge of the bed for a while, staring at the floor like it owed me answers. Claire's visit replayed in my mind on a loop, not in a romantic way, not at all. It was something else, something heavier, like someone had finally seen the mess inside me and didn't walk away. I made coffee, first time I didn't just microwave what was left in the pot from yesterday. Small thing, I know, but it felt like an effort, and that's rare lately. I walked outside to the porch, the mug warm in my hands, the air still cool. There were leaves scattered across the lawn, the kind Anna would have bugged me to rake. I hadn't touched them in weeks, my neighbor waved from across the street. I lifted my hand in response, but I don't think he noticed. That's all right. I didn't wave to be seen. I did it to feel human. By midday, I found myself reaching for my phone, not to scroll, not to distract. I just looked at Claire's name. She messaged me after she left, "Thank you for letting me talk. Hope today's a little lighter." I never replied. I don't know why. I typed, "It is a little," then deleted it, then typed it again, and this time I hit send. She wrote back almost immediately, "That's something." I don't know what made me do it, but I asked if she wanted to come by for lunch. Nothing fancy. I had soup in a can and some bread that wasn't moldy yet. She said yes. Around noon, she showed up. No makeup, hair tied back, wearing a hoodie that used to be her brother's, baggy and too warm for the weather, but comfortable. She looked tired, the kind of tired that grief brings, not from lack of sleep, but from carrying too many emotions at once. We ate at the kitchen table again. I had to wipe off 2 months of dust from the seat across from mine. We didn't talk about Anna at first. We just talked about work, her students, how exhausting kids can be when they sense you're emotionally checked out. She said she'd been having trouble keeping up with grading papers. I told her I hadn't sanded a piece of wood in months. Then she asked if I'd been back in my workshop. I shrugged. "It's just a storage room now," I said. "Tools collecting dust, same as everything else." She got quiet for a moment. "Would you mind showing me?" We walked out to the detached garage in the back. I hadn't stepped in there since before Anna passed. The air smelled stale, like wood oil and thyme. She walked around slowly, touching things gently like a visitor at a museum. "It's beautiful," she said. "You built so much here." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My throat closed up again. Then she turned to me and said, "I know she loved this place. She used to brag about it, said this was your church." That broke me. I had to sit down on the workbench. My hands were shaking. I covered my face and tried to breathe, but the sob came anyway. I didn't fight it. Claire didn't say anything. She just sat beside me and placed her hand on my back. We stayed like that for a while, no words, just shared silence and the sounds of things I hadn't allowed myself to feel for a long time. When we walked back to the house, she didn't rush to leave. We sat on the porch, watched the sun start to dip. She asked how Sophie was doing. I told her the truth. She's good, too good. She doesn't ask about her mom much anymore, just calls her mommy in heaven. She's adjusted better than I have. Claire nodded. That's what kids do. They adapt. But she still needs her dad, not the version that's hiding. The real one. I nodded, staring at a tree I still hadn't trimmed. I don't know who that is anymore, I said. She looked at me, not pitying, just present. Then let's find him, slowly, one day at a time. That stuck with me. Later, when she finally got up to leave, I walked her to the car. She turned before getting in and said, "This doesn't have to be heavy all the time. We can talk, laugh, sit in silence, whatever you need." I didn't know how to say thank you in a way that felt big enough, so I just nodded. As she drove off, I stood in the driveway long after the car disappeared. That night, I called Sophie. She was with my mom, watching cartoons. She told me about her school project. She was building a model of the solar system. She asked, "Can I come stay with you this weekend?" I said, "I'd love that." After I hung up, I went back to the workshop, turned on the light, just stood there. For the first time in forever, I looked at it and didn't feel pain. I felt possibility. I wouldn't call what was happening between us a routine, but something consistent had started to form. We weren't seeing each other. It wasn't like that, at least not in a way I could define. But we talked more regularly, sometimes short phone calls during the day, sometimes longer ones after dark when the silence in my house felt thickest. There was something about her voice. It didn't fix anything, but it didn't demand anything either. It just stayed. And that, her presence, quiet but steady, became something I found myself leaning on. I started getting up earlier, not out of energy, but out of necessity. Sophie was coming to stay the weekend. It had been a while since she slept here. I spent the day before cleaning rooms I hadn't set foot in for weeks, washed her sheets, wiped the dust off her bookshelf, set her favorite stuffed bear, Mr. Waffles, back on her pillow like he'd been waiting there the whole time. When my parents dropped her off, my mom hugged me longer than usual. She didn't say anything, just looked at me like she was trying to read if I was back. My dad offered to fix the fence again. I told him I'd take care of it. That was a first. Sophie ran straight to the kitchen and asked if I still had chocolate milk. I didn't, but we went to the store and she picked it out herself. She wore the same little hoodie Anna used to buy her every year in a new color. I had to look away for a second. It hit too hard. That evening we made frozen pizza and watched some animated movie I couldn't follow. She fell asleep halfway through with her head on my shoulder. I didn't move, not for an hour, maybe two. Just sat there and listened to her breathe. When I tucked her in, she whispered, "I miss this house." I smiled, kissed her forehead, and said, "Me too." The next day we walked to the park. It was warm enough for just sweatshirts. She ran ahead, climbed everything she could, made friends in 5 seconds with a kid named Blake, and somehow convinced me to push her on the swings, even though she could do it herself now. Later that afternoon, Claire texted, "Hope your weekend with Sophie is going okay. Need anything?" I almost said no, but instead I wrote, "Want to come by for coffee tomorrow? She'd love to see you." She answered, "Would love to." Sunday morning, I made pancakes, burned the first batch. Sophie told me they looked like angry clouds, but still ate one. We were laughing about it when Claire knocked. Sophie beat me to the door. "Claire!" she shouted, throwing her arms around her waist. Claire smiled, knelt down, and hugged her back. "You've gotten taller," she said. "You look just like your mom." I stiffened for a second, not because of what she said, because it was true, because it was kind. But still, those words sometimes dropped like stones inside my chest. They sat at the table and talked like old friends. Sophie told her about the solar system project. Claire asked if she needed help with the planets. Sophie said, "I already made Saturn, but Jupiter is hard." Then she looked at me and asked, "Can Claire stay for dinner?" I looked at Claire. She shrugged like she didn't want to say no but didn't want to intrude. "Sure," I said, niece, as long as she's okay with grilled cheese and tomato soup." We ate together that evening. No one cried, no one said anything heavy. It felt like a normal Sunday, the kind I hadn't felt in a very long time. After Sophie went to bed, Claire and I stayed on the porch. It was cool again, but she brought a jacket. "You're different," she said quietly. Sipping her tea, I raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" "Less buried. You're still grieving, I know that, but there's light now. I can see it." I looked down at my hands. "Some days are better than others." "That's okay," she said. "It's not about getting over it. It's about learning to breathe again." We sat in silence for a while. It was a good silence, the kind where you don't feel pressured to fill it. Then she asked, "Do you ever talk to her, Anna?" "All the time," I said, almost without thinking. "I still tell her about my day. I know it's irrational, but it helps. Makes me feel like she didn't just disappear." "She didn't," Claire said. "Not really, not for Sophie, not for me, and not for you." That hit me harder than I expected. I've been afraid, I admitted, to feel okay, like if I stop being sad, it means I'm letting her go. Claire nodded slowly. "That's the hardest part, but I think she'd want you to let go of the sadness, not of her." I didn't reply, just looked out at the yard. The porch light buzzed above us. Before she left, I walked to her car again. She turned and said, "I'm not trying to fix you. I just want you to know I'm here however you need me." I didn't know how to say thank you in a way that felt right, so I just said, "You've already helped more than you know." She smiled. "Then I'll keep showing up." She got in her car and drove off. That night, I stood in the kitchen after washing the dishes and caught a glimpse of myself in the window. I didn't look better. I didn't look healed, but I didn't look hollow either, and that felt like something. Something started to shift inside me, not fast, not obvious, but real, like ice melting. I still woke up with that tightness in my chest most mornings. Still had moments when I'd forget she was gone and reach across the bed only to find empty sheets. But there were also new moments now. Light ones. Like when Sophie laughed so hard at dinner she snorted milk through her nose, or when Claire texted me a terrible pun, and I actually laughed instead of faking it. I didn't know what was happening between us, between me and Claire, and honestly I tried not to name it. It wasn't romantic in the traditional sense. It wasn't planned. There was no flirtation, no expectation, just this slow, quiet build of something that neither of us were pushing, but neither of us were walking away from either. One night, Sophie had just gone back to my parents for the week. School stuff, bedtime routines. It was easier for now. I stood in the doorway after we hugged goodbye, watching their car drive away. The house instantly felt heavier again, like it always did when she left. That same evening, Claire texted, "You up for company?" I stared at the message for a while, then wrote back, "Sure, I could use the distraction." She arrived about an hour later. I didn't clean up or light candles or do anything to prepare. It wasn't that kind of visit. I opened the door, and there she was in jeans, sneakers, and a denim jacket, hair pulled back, tired eyes, soft smile. We sat on the porch with tea, the late spring air just cool enough for a hoodie. We didn't talk for the first 10 minutes, just sipped, listened to the night sounds, a distant dog barking, crickets, the hum of my neighbor's broken air conditioner. Then she broke the silence. "I went through her old texts today," she said. "Anna's." I looked up. I don't know why, maybe because I missed her, maybe because I needed to remember what her voice sounded like in my head. I nodded. "I do that with voicemails." She gave a sad smile. She was always better at words than me. Her messages were full of warmth, encouragement, even when things got dark. "She hated being pitied," I said. "She was strong. She made people around her strong, too." Claire looked down at her cup. "She made me better. Always did." I took a breath and said what I'd been holding on to for months. "I don't think I've allowed myself to talk to anyone about how much I loved her. Not really. People ask, they nod, but they don't want to know the details. The way she smiled with one side of her mouth when she was trying not to laugh. How she'd hum in the shower off key, the way she'd get mad at the GPS even when she was right." Claire looked at me, eyes wet but steady. "She used to say I was her compass," I continued. "But ever since she died, I felt completely lost. Like I don't even know where north is anymore." Claire reached out and put her hand over mine. "You're not lost, James. You're hurting. That's not the same thing." The warmth of her hand surprised me. It was grounding, solid. I didn't pull away. We talked for another hour. About the first time I met Anna. About Claire's struggles after the funeral. About the guilt she still carried for not being there more during the last month. Even though she had nothing to apologize for. It was close to midnight when she finally stood up. The air was cooler now, and I offered her my flannel jacket, which she accepted without argument. She slipped it on, smiled faintly, and said, "Smells like sawdust." I laughed. "That's how you know it's mine." We stood in the doorway. Neither of us seemed in a hurry to say goodbye. Then something happened. She stepped closer and wrapped her arms around me, not tight, not romantic, just warm, present. I hugged her back fully without hesitation. Then she pulled back slightly, looked up at me, and kissed me. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't heated. It was soft, brief but real. I froze. She stepped back instantly, her face half apologetic. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't plan that. I don't know what came over me." I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. "Claire," I started, but nothing came out. "I know," she said, cutting me off gently. "You're not ready. It's okay." She started to turn. "Wait," I said. She looked back. "I didn't hate it. I wasn't expecting it, and I don't know what it means." She gave a small nod. "Me neither." And then, without another word, she stepped forward and kissed me again, this time slower, just as soft, and I didn't freeze. I let it happen. When we finally stepped apart, I exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for a year. She smiled the saddest smile I'd ever seen and whispered, "You're allowed to feel something again, James." And with that, she left. I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was confused or scared or even overwhelmed, but because I felt something unfamiliar, something that had been missing for a long, long time. Hope. No explosions, no declarations, no dramatic music playing in the background. Just a slow return of life, one day at a time. Claire didn't kiss me again the next time we saw each other. We didn't even talk about it right away. The next morning she just texted, "Still here if you need to talk." And that was the rhythm. Still here. Always just here. At some point she came by again for dinner. I had made something awful. Undercooked chicken with overcooked rice. We laughed and she stayed late. This time, when she left, I kissed her goodnight. No hesitation, no confusion. It was small, sure, but it was mine. The weeks after that unfolded naturally. She started dropping by more often. We started going on slow, quiet walks around the neighborhood, usually when the sun was setting. Sometimes we held hands, sometimes we didn't. Sometimes we talked about Anna, sometimes we didn't talk at all. The grief didn't go away, it never does. But Claire never tried to erase it. She made space for it, and that was everything. Sophie came back to live with me full-time at the start of the new school year. It wasn't some big dramatic switch. One Sunday night, she just said, "I want to be home again." And that was it. She's grown taller, funnier, more confident. She makes her own breakfast, packs her bag before bed, brushes her teeth without reminders. I think she knew I was stronger now, and somehow that gave her permission to come back. I turned the spare room into a proper bedroom, then painted the walls pale green, added new curtains. Claire helped pick them out. She started staying the night more often, sometimes in the guest room, sometimes not. It was Sophie who finally asked the question I'd been circling for months. We were sitting at the table one morning. She was eating cereal. I was scrolling through the weather. Claire was in the kitchen making coffee. Sophie looked up and said, "Is she your girlfriend?" I blinked. Claire froze at the counter. I looked at Sophie. "Do you want her to be?" She shrugged. "I don't care. She's nice. She makes you smile again." I looked at Claire. She looked back. No words passed between us, just a quiet, mutual understanding. "Yeah," I said, "she is." Sophie nodded like it was the most boring revelation in the world and went back to her cereal. Later that day, Claire asked if I was sure. I said, "I haven't been sure of much this past year, but this feels good, natural, right?" She smiled and squeezed my hand. "Then let's keep going." We didn't get married, didn't announce anything. We didn't need to. She moved in after Christmas, brought 2 boxes of books, a coffee maker she liked more than mine, and a little plant she named Kevin. The house started to look like a home again. Pictures on the wall, scented candles I would have never picked. Sophie's drawings on the fridge. My old workshop, once abandoned, now half filled with half-finished projects again. I even started building a new dining table from scratch, oak, clean lines, just like Anna used to ask for. I told Claire it wasn't about replacing the old one. It was about growing, making room for now. We lit a candle, all 3 of us. Claire didn't try to lead, didn't try to take Anna's place. She just stood beside me, and when I couldn't find words, she held my hand. I spoke quietly. She gave me a life I never thought I deserved, and when she left, I thought that life was over. But maybe, just maybe, she opened the door for something new, something different, and that's okay. Afterward, Sophie asked if we could all watch a movie. We did, the 3 of us under one blanket with popcorn and bad jokes and laughter I hadn't heard in a long time. That night, I walked Claire to bed. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah, I think I am." She looked at me, a little smile playing at her lips. "This still isn't easy," I added, "but I want this. Us." She leaned in and kissed my cheek. "Me too." Now we're just living. Some days are harder than others. There are still songs I can't listen to, places I avoid. But there's laughter in the house again. There's love, not the same love I lost, but real nonetheless. We cooked dinner together. Sophie helped set the table. Claire keeps trying to teach me how to fold fitted sheets. I keep failing, and every once in a while I still talk to Anna just quietly in my head. I think she'd be okay with this. I hope she would. No one ever tells you what to do with the rest of your life after you lose your first great love. There's no manual, no script, just time, grief, and sometimes a knock on the door. Mine came that night when I thought I was beyond saving. And now we're here, 3 people, 1 home. The story of James and Claire offers a profound lesson. Healing from unimaginable loss is possible when we allow others to share our pain without trying to erase it. James's world crumbled after losing his wife, Anna, to cancer, leaving him a widower at 40. Drowning in grief and struggling to be a father to Sophie. Claire, Anna's best friend, didn't offer empty promises or try to fix him. Instead, she showed up quietly, consistently, with a meal, a conversation, or just her presence, anchoring him in a life that felt unlivable. Her patience and unwavering care teach us that love doesn't always look like grand gestures. Sometimes it's the quiet act of sitting in someone's darkness, refusing to let them face it alone. James's journey from isolation to rebuilding a home with Claire and Sophie shows that moving forward isn't about forgetting the past, but about making space for new light beside it. Claire's ability to honor Anna's memory while building something new reminds us that true support respects both grief and hope. This story urges us to be present for those who are hurting, to stay when it's hard, and to embrace life's unexpected beginnings even after loss. So show up for someone. Hold space for their pain. You might help them find their way back to hope. Have you ever found or offered solace in a dark time? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. If this resonated with you, subscribe and join our community for more stories of healing and connection. Let's keep these heartfelt conversations alive.